Did Buckingham Palace, or even Prince William, quietly set a trap for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle? And if so, did the Sussexes walk straight into it?
He's had enough. He wants to clean the monarchy, and it's all now in the hands of the courts. Meghan Markle is in full mode panic along with Harry because they both know what they did.
The stories would come out. So apparently, according to other journalists, we found out that there were a lot of porcupines probably told to the royals and even to Harry when they met her. And in order to cover up,
it's actually torture to listen to that woman now, because every other word out of her mouth is a lie.
Because right now, something far bigger than tabloid gossip is unfolding. And it isn't happening on Netflix or Instagram or in a carefully edited interview chair. It's happening in courtrooms, where centuries-old laws still matter. And for the first time in years, the question isn't about family drama. It's about constitutional legitimacy, a legal case that changed the temperature. A few days ago, one of the most significant aristocratic inheritance cases in recent memory quietly made headlines in Britain. And surprisingly, almost no one in the celebrity commentary world gave it the attention it deserves.
King Charles didn't want to do anything about it given what's going on with Andrew, but in order for William to save the monarchy, he has to deal with the Archie and Lilibet problem.
The case centers on Alexander Thynne, 8th Marquess of Bath, and his son, born via surrogacy in the United States. The issue? Whether that child legally qualifies as an heir under long-standing trust language written decades, in some cases centuries, ago. At stake, an estate reportedly worth $157 million. The presiding judge made something very clear. Under older inheritance frameworks, a child not born of the body of the mother may not automatically qualify as a beneficiary. The law does not adapt emotionally. It follows written definitions. The Marquess has openly acknowledged the surrogacy and is now petitioning the court to ensure his son's rights are protected. Transparency, legal process, open acknowledgement. Now pause for a moment, because that phrase, born of the body, is not just relevant to aristocratic trusts.
I'm going to quote Tom Bauer by saying, he said, look, we all laughed at Samantha and she was right, and everything she said has come true.
It sits at the heart of British royal succession. The 1701 question. The line of succession to the British throne has been governed for over 3 centuries by legislation rooted in the Act of Settlement 1701. That framework, reinforced through subsequent constitutional instruments, establishes that heirs must be legitimate, biological descendants. For more than 300 years, royal births have been documented with extraordinary precision, witnessed, verified, publicly announced, not for spectacle, but for constitutional clarity. When Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, welcomed their children at St. Mary's Hospital, the world saw photographs within hours. Official notices were signed by attending physicians. The transparency wasn't personal, it was institutional. That's how a monarchy maintains legitimacy. Now compare that with 2019, the birth of Archie, and a break from tradition. When Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor was born on May 6, 2019, at London's Portland Hospital, something unusual happened. There was no immediate hospital step photo call.
Something is happening right now in the courts, which is incredibly important, and nobody's paying attention to it because this will make history, and not in a good way for Rachel Meghan Markle.
No signed medical bulletin posted on an easel. No traditional witnessing by palace-appointed officials. Instead, the public learned details gradually, and in some cases, retrospectively. Later, in his memoir Spare, Prince Harry described deeply personal moments surrounding the birth, candles, music, spiritual rituals, emotional detail. But critics argue that what was offered was narrative, not verification. And in a monarchy where constitutional continuity depends on documented legitimacy, narrative is not the same as record. Lilibet's arrival, across the Atlantic. 2 years later, in June 2021, the Sussexes welcomed their daughter at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital in California. Again, the birth was described in deeply personal terms in Spare. Prince Harry wrote movingly about being present in the delivery room. But once again, there was no traditional British constitutional verification process. Now here is where the conversation becomes uncomfortable. Not conspiratorial, but procedural. If a 400-year-old aristocratic trust must clarify whether a surrogate-born child qualifies as an heir, what mechanism automatically confirms the same within the line of succession? It is not an accusation. It is a legal question. And legal questions do not disappear simply because they are
She
sensitive.
had a lot of health issues and she couldn't have one of her children. So they had to use a surrogate in the United States. Why the United States? Because in the United Kingdom, the children, even though through a surrogate, belong.
Why this matters now. The children of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex currently sit within the line of succession. Under the Succession to the Crown Act 2013, gender preference was modernized. But the foundational requirement of legitimate birth was not redefined to explicitly address surrogacy. That silence may not have mattered in 2019, but in 2026...
Bath was open and transparent about this. So she is right now going through the legal process because as per the Peerage Act of 1963, that child born in the United States from a surrogate is not entitled to anything, inheritance or...
Amid renewed scrutiny of aristocratic inheritance laws, it matters more than ever, because the Marquess of Bath case demonstrates something critical. The law does not assume. It requires clarity. Prince William's calculus. Multiple royal commentators suggest that Prince William, as heir to the throne, is increasingly focused on institutional stability. His approach since becoming Prince of Wales has emphasized discipline, streamlining, and reputational repair. Observers point to subtle but deliberate moves, distancing commercial use of titles, clarifying working royal status, tightening communications. For a future king, ambiguity is risk, and no monarchy built on hereditary legitimacy can afford prolonged uncertainty about succession, not because scandal destroys monarchies, but because doubt does. The silence from Montecito. What keeps this story alive isn't proof of wrongdoing, it's absence of definitive clarification. When rumors first surfaced years ago, responses came in the form of legal warnings and media pressure, not detailed constitutional reassurance. And that vacuum has allowed speculation to grow. It's worth stating clearly, there is no confirmed evidence that either Sussex child was born via surrogacy. But there is also no formal independent constitutional verification process publicly documented in the traditional manner. In an era of social media amplification, that gap becomes fertile ground for narrative warfare. A broader context. This conversation unfolds while King Charles continues to balance personal health challenges with institutional reform, and while public trust in traditional structures remains fragile. Recent polling in the UK shows fluctuating support for the monarchy among younger generations, making clarity and credibility more important than ever. For Prince William, the long game is obvious. Protect the institution. And institutions survive not on emotion, but on documentation. The core issue. The Marquess of Bath is fighting openly in court to secure his son's inheritance rights under old trust language. That is transparency through legal process. If, hypothetically, constitutional ambiguity existed in the royal line, the only durable solution would also be legal clarity, not public relations. Because a monarchy can survive family rifts. It can survive memoirs. It can survive streaming documentaries. What it cannot survive is unresolved constitutional uncertainty. Final thought. This isn't about disliking Meghan. It isn't about defending Harry. It isn't about tabloid drama. It's about a 1,000-year-old institution whose continuity depends on precision. If everything surrounding the Sussex births is entirely straightforward, then a formal clarification would end the conversation permanently. If not, the Marquess of Bath case has just demonstrated how the courts, not commentators, ultimately resolve questions of inheritance and legitimacy. And perhaps that is the quiet trap some believe was set. Not by Buckingham Palace, not by Prince William, but by the law itself, because the law waits patiently, and eventually, it asks its question.